है जिंदगी दिल से लगो खोल के
हमारा भी रिश्ता कुछ यूनिक सा है। वो पहली जब बचपन में मैं हर एक को तो मैं भी जवान था उन दिनों में, तो बहन थी, फिर भाभी बन गई, तो हमारा भी सफर कुछ यूनिक।
तुम्हारी माँ नहीं बनूंगी।
नहीं, माँ नहीं। मेरी माँ, मेरे 2 बच्चे हैं जो आपकी बेटी की बहुत करीब हैं। हम चाहते कि आप कहाँ बैठना चाहेंगी?
जहाँ पर भी आप बोले।
स्टूडियो आपका है, आप बताइए, मालकिन तो आप है।
कहाँ बैठू बोलो? आपका
एक तो मुझे लगता है कि वो चाहते कि मैं खड़े रहूं।
आपका जो फेसिंग है,
मेरा फेसिंग, मेरा प्रोफाइल।
हाँ, प्रोफाइल।
नहीं, वो तो उसके लिए वैसे आपके लिए तो बहुत कुछ सैक्रिफाइस कर लूंगा, अपना प्रोफाइल भी, और जो कर रहा हूं मैं, बाय द वे। पहली फिल्म है आपकी बहुत सालों में जिसपे वाईआरएफ का लोगो नहीं है, ये कैसे हुआ?
तो जनवरी का मंथ था 2021 और 2020 पैंडमिक 21। तो निखिल का फ़ोन आया एंड आई वाज लिटिल शॉक्ड बिकॉज निखिल नॉर्मली वी डोंट टॉक विथ ईच अदर ऑन द फोन, वी बम्प्ड इनटू ईच अदर मैनी अ टाइम्स। हम बहुत बार मिले, कभी ऑस्ट्रेलिया में मिले, कभी कोई फिल्म फेस्टिवल में मिले, और ऐसे मतलब मिलते रहते थे, बट वी नॉट रियली इन टच ऑन द फ़ोन। तो निखिल का जब फ़ोन आया तो आई वाज लाइक, अच्छा लेट मी टेक द कॉल, व्हाट हैज़ निखिल टू से, समथिंग न्यू। तो निखिल ने फ़ोन करके सीधा सीधा बोला कि रानी, आई हैव दिस स्क्रिप्ट एंड आई थिंक देयर इज़ नोबडी एल्स हु कैन डू इट बट यू। सो आई सेड ओके, सो व्हाट इज़ द स्टोरी? सो ही जस्ट नरेटेड मी अ वन लाइन अबाउट दिस रियल इंसिडेंट। ही सेड कि ये कहानी जो मैं प्रोड्यूस कर रहा हूँ, ये रियल लाइफ इंसिडेंट से इंस्पायर करके हम फिल्म बना रहे हैं। और आई सेड अच्छा, तो क्या स्टोरी है? तो जब निखिल ने मुझे जिस्ट बोला कि एक माँ के दोनों बच्चे एक कंट्री के अथॉरिटीज़ ने कॉन्फिस्केट कर लिए हैं, तो मुझे एक्चुअली लगा कि निखिल मजाक कर रहा है। तो मैंने बोला ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है, हो ही नहीं सकता, मतलब व्हाट आर द बेसिस, चार्जेस क्या थे? तो जब उन्होंने चार्जेस बताए तो दोज वर ऑल थिंग्स दैट वी हैव ग्रोन अप विथ, विच इज़ अ कल्चर, कि हाथ से खाना खिलाना या साथ में सुलाना बिस्तर पर बच्चों को अप टू अ सर्टेन एज, फिर काला टीका लगाना। तो ये सब चीज़ें जब निखिल ने मुझे बोला तो मैं काफ़ी शॉक हो गई, और मैंने बोला अच्छा ठीक है निखिल, आप स्क्रिप्ट भेजिए एंड आई विल रीड द स्क्रिप्ट। बट मैं इतनी मतलब इमोशनली चार्ज्ड हो गई सुन के, तो आफ्टर आई केप्ट द फ़ोन मैंने गूगल करना शुरू कर दिया एंड आई वेंट टू द रियल स्टोरी। एंड जब मैंने पूरा पढ़ा आई वॉज रियली स्टम्प्ड, और मुझे लगा कि ये फिल्म में किस तरह से स्क्रीन प्ले में बन के आएगा, क्योंकि कभी कभी कहानी अच्छी होती है लेकिन स्क्रीन प्ले फॉर्मेट में एक फ़िल्म में शायद निखर के नहीं आती एक स्टोरी। तो मुझे जानना था कि स्क्रिप्ट कैसी होगी। तो स्क्रिप्ट जब मैंने पढ़ा मुझे स्क्रिप्ट भी अच्छा लग गया। तो मैंने सोचा कि अच्छा ठीक है, मैं निखिल को ज़रा सा तोल मोल के देखती हूँ कि वो कितना मुझे चाहता है फिल्म के लिए। तो मैंने निखिल को बोला कि निखिल देखो, मेरे साथ काम करना आपको बहुत डिफ़िकल्ट होगा, क्योंकि अभी मैं एक माँ हूँ और मैं दूसरे एक्टरों की तरह ज़्यादा घंटे नहीं दे सकती आपको, क्योंकि मेरी जो प्रायोरिटी है वो मेरी बच्ची है। तो आप एज अ प्रोड्यूसर आप शायद वो मतलब झेल नहीं पाएंगे जो मेरे खुद के पति झेलते हैं। तो निखिल ने बोला नहीं नहीं, जो तुम्हारा टाइम है हम उसी टाइम पे काम करेंगे। ऐसा अच्छा, निखिल तो हर चीज़ पे हाँ हाँ बोले जा रहा है, मुझे मौका ही नहीं दे रहा है कि मैं ना बोल सकूं। तो फिर मैंने बोला अच्छा ठीक है, पर तुम मुझे मेरे पति की तरह प्यार दे पाओगे? तो निखिल ने बोला मैं तो कुछ कुछ होता के टाइम से प्यार करता हूँ। तो बोले ठीक है, तो वो भी ठीक है,
तब से भी झेलते ही आ रहा है।
तो फिर ऑन अ मोर सीरियस नोट, I think Nikhil has always stood for quality, like what films that he's produced till now. I think he has a very good reputation in the industry, that he takes up films which, you know, make a difference. And he takes films which have a very hard-hitting subject. And he's not, like he's quite fearless in terms of being a producer. Sometimes you can get into a lot of trouble working in films that are slightly controversial. But Nikhil, I've seen, has never shied away from producing films like that. And I knew that technically he's going to be fantastic. So obviously the way he'll make the film will have a certain quality, it'll have a taste. So for me, it was a no-brainer completely. And then, of course, Nikhil said that the director is Ashima. Ashima is somebody who I've seen in YRF for so many years because she's done her first film, Mere Dad Ki Maruti, with Yashraj Films. So I've met her a couple of times, I've bumped into her, and it's always been a very nice chat with her, though I've never worked with her before, and we had nothing in common. But she was always very warm, and she's been always this bright girl that I've seen. And when she decided to become a single parent, she came to see me. And I thought that that was a very brave move from her part, that she decided to become a mum all by herself, which was a very brave thing. And I remember being very proud of her in my heart. And I was like, hats off to this girl for doing something like that. Because being a single parent in a country like Bombay is tough. So I already had a lot of respect for her as a mother, as a girl, as a person who's trying to make it on her own in the city. And when I spoke with Ashima, I realized that she's very, very passionate about this story because she's spoken to Sagarika. She has done so many calls with her. She was very involved with the subject. So I think when a director is so passionate about a story, I think that love translates into the film. So for me, I think it was just that Nikhil, I've known because he was there from the first time I met you, Karan. So for me, it was just an extension of, I would say, Dharma and, Yashraj. So MA is actually just an extension, and that is what he promised me before I started the film. He says, Rani, I've been under Karan, I've been under Adi, I've worked with them, so you won't feel a difference. And you're right.
Being a mother yourself, I'm sure was part of your emotional training without you even realizing it. You are such a protective mother. I've seen that literally in front of my eyes. And you're playing a Bengali lady fighting for her children. It's like this story was already born inside of you, and you just were waiting for the right opportunity. What did you do to did you interact a lot with Sagarika, or did you not? Did you want to that's the first part of the question, did you want to internalize this character and do it your way? Secondly, in terms of the Bengali nuances, though you are Bengali yourself, but did you lean on anyone or anything to portray Mrs. Chatterjee? Because in many ways, she's very different from you as well. In terms of her background, in terms of her own demeanor, she's not Rani Mukherjee. She is Mrs. Chatterjee, and that's what you became. When you see the film, I didn't see Rani Mukherjee in one frame. I just saw Mrs. Chatterjee. So these two, again, I reiterate, the first part was like, did I meet Sagarika? Did you meet Sagarika a lot? And secondly, how did you infuse the Bengali nuances into your character?
So I have not yet met Sagarika.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
I have not yet met Sagarika.
You've never met Sagarika?
No, I've never met Sagarika.
This is a shock to me, literally.
Yeah, so I've never met
And never
Sagarika.
spoken to her?
No, I've not spoken to her.
You've not
as well.
spoken to her, you've not met her?
No. Because I think as an actor, what I wanted to bring to the table is something that I thought would be my interpretation of Mrs. Chatterjee's character. I didn't want too much of a baggage because she's very much there. So I didn't want people to find similarities or say that this is similar, that is similar. For me, the story of Mrs. Chatterjee was about Mrs. Chatterjee, and I had to play it not knowing that this has actually happened. I had to play it cinematically for this film. I knew the emotions she went through because I sat with Ashima, I think 1,000,000 times over the script, and I went through it with her and what her emotions were, in terms of what Sagarika's emotions were. Ashima had a lot of tapes that she had recorded of Sagarika chatting with her, so I went through a lot of those tapes where I started to understand and I grabbed what her emotions are. Because that was what was very important for me for the character, that I need to understand her emotional graph. because of what she's actually been through.
Right.
Because it was a struggle, it was frustration, it was anger, it was the loneliness, it was the mother's love, it was so many things. So I wanted to know what headspace was Sagarika in during that period, and what is she today? And what has this journey of this fight made Sagarika into today? So I went through that. But when it actually came to performing and becoming the character, the only person that came to my mind was my mom. And, and I have no qualms to say it, that I have just taken my mother and put her into Mrs. Chatterjee. Because my mom is raised.
I saw that. That's why
You
I
saw
asked
that?
you. I saw that.
Yeah.
I was like, this is Krishna auntie. Like, she's portraying her mother.
So actually for me, someone who is so connected to her roots, there is nobody else that I know more than my mother. My mother got married to my dad 50 years ago, and she came to Bombay. She's born and brought up in Calcutta. She got married when she was 21. But she is such a Bengali in her, the way she is as a person, the way she eats, the way she talks. Even when after 50 years of being in Bombay, when she speaks in Hindi, she sounds like a Bengali. When she speaks in English, she sounds like a Bengali. So I think if you're once a Bengali in West Bengal, born and brought up in West Bengal, you'll always be that. And whenever you speak to anybody from Calcutta, West Bengal, you'll see them having a flair of that Bengali accent, which never leaves them. And I think that is spectacular for me, because my mom, living in Bombay, has not been able to leave her roots like away. You know, she's still very connected to her roots. And whatever impression I had of my mom growing up, the way she is, Bengali tigress, the way she has fed us with her hands, you know, the way she used to talk to us, the way she has given us love. I think it was, when I read the character of Mrs. Chatterjee, for me it was all along like my mother. Like I was imagining my mother, what would happen if somebody would have taken Raja and me away from her. And I could imagine my mom going completely nuts.
You know, it takes me back to the moment when I saw the film and I was so shaken and moved and triumphant, of course, in the end. I have an adat, you know, I have twins at home and I'm a single parent. Hamesha I say, you know, whenever my children are looking very pretty, I say kala tika laga do.
Yes.
My daughter has a habit sometimes that she doesn't eat and I have to make her physically
Feed her.
eat with my hands. We say Saturday ko nazar utaro. It's embedded in our culture. And when I saw the film and I reached home, and Yash and Ruhi was standing there, and I just had tears in my eyes looking at them, because I'd just seen Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway, and I was like, what if one day somebody just comes और मेरे बच्चे को घर से ले जाए? क्योंकि हमारी tradition, हमारी inherent culture, हमारी parenting instinct जो है, उनकी वजह से कोई अगर हमारे बच्चों को ले जाए, and it takes me to my favorite. I think this is your best performance to date. I have to say it on record. It is your best performance to date. And I hope the world notices what I have. And I'm sure the world will on the 17th of March. That moment when it's decided in court कि आप तभी मिल पाओगे अपने बच्चों को जब वो 18 साल के हो जाए. The way you react in that moment, it's like it took me back to a moment, a YRF film called Mashal, where Dilip Kumar bangs on the taxi and says, you know, like, stop. He needs a car because of his wife who's dying. That time, that scene had given me goose flesh. And the second time, in my cinematic memory, where I got goose flesh, is when I saw your reaction, where literally you were sliding, your feet were sliding on the floor while they're trying to hold you back. What was the prep, or did you just go with your gut in that moment, taking and internalizing the circumstance?
I think for me, Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway is a very, very personal film in that sense, because I think every parent, every mother, every father, every person who has a mother will connect with this story, like it like hits you in your gut. Like for me to bring about Sagarika's emotions in the film, what she must have been through, was a huge responsibility. That I wanted to portray the pain that this mother is feeling. I wanted everybody in the audience to feel that pain, to feel that sense of loss. Because if I, as a mother, had to put myself in that place, I don't think I had the courage to even think that. Like if I had to put myself in that place of Sagarika, I don't think I can even fathom that idea of like Adira being away from me. Like I can't fathom it. So I had to put my mother in my place. Like I had to think of my mom.
And how she would behave.
How she would behave if somebody took me and Raja away. Because I didn't have the courage to think about Adira.
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, it was beyond for me to even go through that pain. Because it is a pain which is numbing. Like a mother can literally have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a pain for a parent.
Because I was like, why is Rani not doing a Dharma production film? Like, this is like not fair. Though we won't tell everybody in the audience who sabotaged a certain Dharma production film we were going to do. We won't get into that.
But see, at least now people know that if they get me a good script, I'll work anywhere.
Yes, it's
just
a
rumor
great
that they've spread
statement
about
out there.
me.
Because half the time people believe like you just won't do anything
Yeah,
besides.
but my husband works with so many other actresses.
And
Why
you-
should I not work with other producers?
Good, and rightfully
What is
said.
this?
Well done. Give it up for Rani Mukherjee, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And what was the husband's reaction was my question to the film.
To this film?
Yes.
Oh my God. He was deeply moved. I think obviously after he's become a father also. He was
And the
actually,
great thing is now
he
we
was
can.
in shock.
So before you give your answer, it's wonderful for everyone who's seen the romantics. We finally know that he exists, and that there is a person called Aditya Chopra who sits on the 4th floor of Yash Raj Studios. And now when we talk about him, it's not like he's the Loch Ness monster that we don't know if he exists or not. So yes, this person who actually exists in flesh and blood. What did he say?
So he was actually quite shocked seeing the film. And he was very deeply moved, which I don't think I've seen him so moved in any film. The last I think I saw him that moved was when Yash uncle passed away. Yeah, when he saw the film, I think he was like, because he's a parent today, so obviously it will, like it hit,
Yeah.
like, and then he was very sweet. He just behaved like he didn't even give me like a front hug. He gave me like a side hug as if I'm his child. And he said, well done. So I was like, okay, thank you. So
Well,
it
that's more than Adi normally expresses, I want to say. At least you got a side hug.
yeah, I got like a side hug, like as if he's hugging maybe one of his so many children that are there in YRF, who he's grooming.
I'm too waiting for that side hug when he says well done. It hasn't arrived in the last 30 years.
So yeah, so it was quite a moment because yeah, Adi's very like he praises me behind my back. I think if he praises me in front of my back, he'll just think कि मेरे घर की लक्ष्मी मेरे सर पे डांस करने लगेगी. He tries to avoid that situation. He says ज़्यादा नहीं बोलूँगा तो better है. But I think he couldn't stop himself. But I think he was really, really moved. To my shock. Like, I didn't realize that he would get so moved seeing the film.
Well, shocked and moved takes me to the surprise that I have for you.
Karan, there's one more thing I'd like to say.
Yes.
Since I'm talking to everybody here and the entire media is here, I would really like to say that the shoot of Mrs Chatterjee versus Norway happened in very, very trying times, as we discussed during COVID. And I want to say that the team in Estonia were really, really so well organized, the team there that we shot in. The entire shoot happened so well. So, MA Films, Z Films, and of course, Cuba Films, 3 of them, because it was, the shoot was supposed to be happening in a bubble. And it was the first time that I ever worked like that, apart from the shoot that I did for Bunty Bubbly 2, just few months back. But this was about an entire film that we're shooting outside the country. But it just went off so well. It's one of my most memorable shoots because obviously my daughter was with me. She was doing homeschooling there because it was homeschooling. So whatever happens with Mrs. Chatterjee versus Norway on 17th of March, regardless of what the outcome is, I would like to say that it's going to be one of my most memorable films in my career for more reasons than one.